Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this December 10th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. And all of our content can be found on the EOA.network. There's a link tree that takes you to the location of all of our stuff, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, so on and so forth. So be sure and check that out. And here in just a bit, we're going to have Union County Commissioner Paul Anderes with us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you?
Second Monday.
Yeah. So we were talking everything college football before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crap. I mean, they're gonna have to change it. I think it's not. They can't penalize teams for going undefeated.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look into it, people will understand what I'm talking about. It's just Oregon has the toughest road to the national championship out of all 12 of the teams, and they're the number one team in the country, and haven't lost.
You know, and I've just never really gotten into college football very much until I came to Oregon, which I guess was 25 years ago now. But
it's better than NFL.
Yeah,
I think.
So
my favorite level is NAIA level of college football because they're actually playing for something.
Yeah.
These kids now are paid. Like it's almost like the NFL now.
Yeah.
College football, because they're all getting paid.
Yeah.
In order to get a kid out of the transfer portal to come to your school, you offer them money now.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, we'll give you a scholarship and we have the best team in the country. It's no, hey, I'll give you $3 million. That's why Genty stayed at Boise State. That wasn't for free.
Yeah.
That was not for free.
So is all that information public?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's NIL money. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. And you were telling me about the contract that baseball signed yesterday.
Yeah, Juan Soto.
Yeah.
The largest sports contract in history.
Yeah. It was funny because
years.
I saw a meme of Alex Rodriguez, and he's punching Alex. It's clearly something that somebody just put together, And Alex Rodriguez is like working on a calculator, and it's like the meme is every sports person everywhere calculating the salary.
Yeah. Well, they probably used Alex Rodriguez because at one time he was the highest paid athlete in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw a meme where Juan Soto's contract is worth more than LeBron James and Tom Brady made combined for their entire careers. That's nuts.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Well, so it's like,
but I mean, he's not a joke. I mean, Juan Soto
$750 million, right?
Yeah, $765 million.
That's just
over 15
nuts.
years.
Yeah,
which it's not as much a year as the Ohtani deal, but the Ohtani deal was only 10 years, and Ohtani's was 10 years, $700 million.
Yeah,
but he also plays both ways. He's a pitcher and
yeah,
it's crazy.
All right, well, talking to sports. You want to do sports? Okay.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit right here in town. Traxxas brought back the glory days of monster truck racing with the new Bigfoot 4x4 with BL2S, brushless power, and Traxxas' toughest 4x4 driveline. Bigfoot 4x4 comes outfitted with a clipless Bigfoot number 8 body and factory-installed extreme heavy-duty components to take the most brutal punishment in stride. From the stadium to your own backyard, Traxxas delivers all-day fun and excitement with the new Bigfoot 4x4 monster truck. Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it. Congrats to LHS softball player Austin Miser. I think I said that right. She signed her letter of intent to continue her softball career at Blue Mountain Community College, and that photo's courtesy of the Oregon Lightning Facebook page. The LeGrand girls basketball team won one and lost one over the weekend in Pendleton. They fell 35-28 to Columbia River, Washington, and then they turned around and beat Scappoose 57-54. They play tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Time in Nissa. The boys lost both of their games over in Pendleton over the weekend, falling to Clarkston 56-49 and Estacada 54-39. They play Skyview over there in Idaho on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time. LHS Boys Wrestling took second place in the Ranger Classic over the weekend. They had 4 individual champs at 106, Darren Golzo, at 120, Bragan Anderson, at 157, Riley Krantz, and at 165, Tommy Belding. That's a pretty good showing. This next weekend is the Meilenberg for the boys, so get out there and check that out. It's a fun tournament. The LHS girls wrestling team won the Knife River Invitational to start the defense of their state championship. They had 3 individual champs. At 110, Elena Verdugo. At 145, Paige Allen. And at 190, Maddie Armstrong. Senior Paige Allen was also named the most outstanding wrestler of the tournament. EOU Women's Wrestling had 4 champions at the Lady Mountaineer Open over the weekend. At 103, Nayeli Flores-Roque. At 110, Telsarina Walter. At 131, Anna Rodriguez. And at 145, Liv Weber. The men dropped their duel versus Clackamas on Friday and then had 4 placers on Saturday at the Clackamas Open, but no champions. EOU Women's Basketball dropped both of their games this weekend. On Friday, they lost to OIT 69-50, and on Saturday they lost to Southern 72-59. They're 0-2 in the CCC, 4-3 overall, and they will host College of Idaho this Saturday at 4 p.m. up at Quinn. EOU men's basketball started their quest for a CC title this weekend as well. They lost a heartbreaker on Friday. They blew a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter to drop the game to OIT 85-81, but then they turned around and got redemption on Saturday, winning 70-67 over the Raiders. They host CVI on Saturday at 5 o'clock as well up at Quinn, so get up there and support the Mounties. EOU women's volleyball came to an end on Saturday in the round of 8 at the national tournament. They lost for the 4th time of the year to Southern in 5 sets. They started out really good. They were up 2-1, and they just couldn't seal the deal. And Southern was our, Achilles heel this year. We couldn't beat them. They beat us twice during the regular season, once in the CCC championship and once in the round of 8 at the national tournament. I think the NAIA needs to do a better job of seeding. Not only did we have College of Idaho in the same pool as Corbin at the national tournament, but EOU and Southern should have never met in the quarterfinals. I think it should have been more like the semifinals, or like maybe even on opposite sides of the bracket. It was a heartbreaker. This EOU team, they were good this year, man, and unfortunately both of the CCC teams that made it to the Final Four lost their semifinal matches. So Southern and Corbin are both out. So we have no representation in the national title game from the CCC. I mean, I would argue that the CCC all around is the best conference in the country when it comes to volleyball. We had 5 teams make the national tournament, and that's unheard of. All region awards were released for volleyball just yesterday as well. Kiana Mack, middle blocker for EOU, was first team all-region. Ashton Bales, who's outside hitter for EOU, was also first team all-region. And then honorable mention all-region setter is Alexis McMurtry. That's the AM Sports Report, brought to you by Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it.
Good stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking to watch that game because we had plenty of opportunities to. And I watched it up at EOU with the watch party because
did you?
It was right after the basketball game.
Right.
So I just stayed up there and watched it with, it was me and a bunch of like senior citizens, but It was fun. It was definitely fun. Well, and the Southern basketball team, women's basketball team, watched the first set and a half while they were waiting for the men to get done in the showers and hit the bus. So we had to listen to them cheer when they won the first set. And I was like, this is EOU watch party. Get out of here. I didn't say that, but I was thinking that.
Yeah. Tanya and I were looking at your picture last night, and man, they look great, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah.
I shot the second basketball game with a really wide angle lens. I tried using it, and it's the first time I've really worked with that. What is it? 10 to, what is it?
That super wide one?
Super wide, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 12 to 17 or whatever.
17,
yeah, but it's like...
Yeah. It's challenging, but it's fun.
Yeah, it just gives you a totally different perspective.
Yeah, the picture that I showed earlier of the whole court,
Yeah.
that was that lens,
Yeah.
the black and white one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it looks good. So.
Awesome.
All righty. Well, hey, let's look at the weather graphic. Our weather cam is down right this second. But so it was cold this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tanya said it was 17 degrees. So, but tonight down to 27, and then so it's right around there.
Some snow on Thursday.
Yeah, it looks like we got some.
And then it warms up a little bit. I mean, it's rain and snow on Saturday, but it looks like a typical mild December.
I know. Generally, it's just like we would expect snow by now, but
I'm okay with it. I'm gonna just stay away this year.
I thought about you this morning though when I mean it was cold and the frost on the windshield was like thick. It was not. I mean
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. So.
I don't like
I thought.
that at all.
Yeah, Kyle would love this.
No fun.
All right. Well, hey, Union County Commissioner Paul Anders is with us, and he'll be with us right after this.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku. Here in Eastern Oregon, we're blessed to live in such a wonderful area. And though it may seem mild-mannered, there's actually quite a lot that goes on in this area. And apparently, there's two dinguses who happen to be here that are actually crazy enough to get up at the crack of dawn to talk about it. Tune into AM Live on EOA with Brent and Doddsy, featuring special guests, weather, sports, news, and more, every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m., only on EOA Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
Continue to work on it. All right, we're back. Union County Commissioner Paul Anders. How are you, man?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Good. How have things been going?
Been good. Yeah, busy but good.
Yeah.
Lot going on and a lot to keep me busy.
I know. I'm on your mailing list, and I got the newsletter of what you have been doing recently, and which is a lot.
I think so.
Do you feel like you're keeping minutes the way, I mean, a diary of when you look at that, it's like, holy smokes.
That was a campaign promise of mine, and I don't do it as regularly as I should. And this last one, I changed it up a little bit and talked about the different roles that I have as part of my job. And when I got to the end of it, I kind of went, whew, that's significant. But I know I've said it many times on this show, I love my job. I love teaching, love being an FFA advisor, but I love this job at least as much, if and probably in different ways, but even more.
Yeah. It's probably, I mean, we've all had this experience of looking back at our camera roll, and it's like all of life is just right there, know, and I'm sure that's some of the stuff that you experience from time to time is like, wow, did that really happen? Or you mean that meeting was a year ago? Or
Yep. And mine tends to be when I look at my monthly calendar and how filled it is with different events and meetings and things like that. So it keeps me busy.
So Jake Sievert is the new county commissioner?
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yep. Commissioner-elect. Yep.
Yeah.
January 2nd, he will be sworn in, and then by Oregon statute, he can't start until Monday the 6th.
Okay.
So looking forward to having him on board. I've been in multiple meetings with him just this weekend, 2 different events. In the morning, we were at the state cattlemen's meeting in Pendleton together. I went over to listen to someone that works on a lot of natural resources issues and what they had to say. And then Saturday evening, I went to the Union County Cattlemen's annual banquet, and the Bingham family was recognized as Cattleman of the Year, and so very richly deserved, I think. It was nice to see them get the recognition.
Good. Yeah, and Jake was a student of yours, right?
Correct. Yeah, he was. I want to say he was a junior when I started teaching at LeGrand High School. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And
he's my same. We're the same class.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Yep.
Well, good.
Yeah.
And so what else is up? What else is burning up that we don't know about? Maybe.
Okay. Well. I think since the last time we've talked, that small group of Eastern Oregon County Commissioners, there's representation from Klamath, Deschutes, Umatilla, Crook, and Wallowa. It seems like I'm forgetting one of them. Oh, Harney. Sit down and have a conversation with the governor, and we talked about a broad range of topics. That was prior to her completing her budget, and we talked a little bit about that and what we would like to see in it, and some of those things came to fruition, some of them didn't, as always. They're good conversations. They're honest, they're open, nothing's off the table, and what I've noticed about her, which is significantly different than the last governor, is the way she questions and the depth of the questions. She thinks about things quite a little bit and wants to kind of get down to the bottom of things, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that about her. And the other is the access that we've not had before, since I've been in office anyway. Time's slipping by. I can't believe it's the 10th of December already.
Oh, man, that's crazy.
But she also, as we were leaving that meeting, said that she wanted to have at least a Zoom meeting with us to talk about her budget that is now out. And it's a daunting document when you start looking through it.
I can imagine.
Sure.
Yeah. And she has agencies that are, I would consider pretty deep in the red. ODOT is looking at a $558 million shortfall. Oregon Department.
$558 million shortfall?
Right, over the biennium. So that's 2 years.
Oh, okay. But still.
Which doesn't really make it that much better, but yes. And then Oregon Department of Forestry is 200 and some million because of the big fire season we had this last summer, in particular on ODF protected grounds.
Don't they have flex in that though? Like, because there's years where there's not as much fire, right? So they have, like, it kind of carries over.
They have savings accounts.
To a degree, yes, but it was big enough this year that they are that much short, from the way I understand it.
Oh, dang.
And they, at one point, I think, and I want to say it was 2020 when we had the Labor Day fires, they actually cashed in on a insurance policy they had through Lloyd's of London, and then weren't able to get that insurance again. So, but 2020 was a big season as well.
So what happens? Why is ODOT short? What is their? How does that work?
Bottom line?
Yeah.
Most transportation in Oregon is driven by, or is, funded by
fuel. I'm sorry, I'll let you finish. The tax for fuel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Gas tax.
Right, yeah.
And, my family's a perfect example. We got a new car about a year and a half ago, and it gets significantly better mileage. So we're not buying as much fuel. We're not putting as much into the system. And if you look at that, it's a continual decline. And on the other side of that, especially when fuel prices went up very much, those are all real inputs for the work that's done on freeways and highways and county roads and city streets. And that's the asphalt and the diesel it takes to move those things. And it's kind of a double-edged sword that has, and that really in a nutshell is it, the gas tax declining and we have a lot of people that say, well, we need to tax the EVs. Well, I don't disagree, but that's not going to make up that big of a difference.
Not $500 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Joint Committee on Transportation had hearings all over the state last summer. They had one in Ontario, one in Hermiston. I went to both of those, and probably the best information that got out when they were wrapping things up and they were talking about was that the legislators from the other side of the state in particular figured out that in Eastern Oregon, in the wintertime, snow is an everyday occurrence and a way of life. In the west side, excuse me, in the west side, it's an event.
Yeah, it's a natural disaster.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is. So, and I think that was helpful because, when we look at the budget or their budget and how much of it is dedicated to what they call O&M, operations and maintenance, and that's the plowing of the roads, the fixing the guardrails fixing the potholes, repairs, things like that.
So it seems like it was about a year ago or maybe a little bit in the fall that ODOT kind of put out a press release and we're short on funds, so we're not going to plow the roads in Eastern Oregon and there was some hubbub that was a little bit of a political stunt for them to get more money. What's your take on that? And
I'm not that close to their budgeting process, but it seemed that, and that was, gosh, I want to say that was January, February, maybe March
of this year.
Of 2024.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, because it was
kind of the heart of last winter.
Right,
it might have
right.
even been further back than that.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the legislature realized at that point that we've got to plow these roads.
Right.
In
Well,
Eastern
yeah.
Oregon.
I mean, it was such an absurd thing to even consider.
And to that point, Northeast Oregon got a significant amount of that total additional money.
Right.
To take care of the roads. And just late this summer, they put out a similar document that talked about that 558 and the number of layoffs, which is give or take 1,000 in all of Oregon.
Wow.
Yes, and in Northeast Oregon, which is eastern and Northeast Oregon, fairly large area with a lot of folks in it, it was over 100 people that were potentially going to be laid off.
Yeah, and I may exaggerate it. It's not that they weren't going to plow the roads. It's they're yeah, we're going to budget it plow on the roads once every 12 hours or something. Yeah, I mean, it was just, it wasn't a reasonable amount because we all know that in a snowstorm, those plows they're never stopping.
Right, hot laps.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, no. Well, I mean, as you get more and more in the state politics, are you learning more? I mean, you probably know more about the state than what you did. What's it been, 6 years now?
6 years, coming up, which is, and with Commissioner Beveridge finishing up her second term, I'm looking at 2 years left, and it's like, man, I've got a lot of things I would like to get done in the meantime. I've learned a ton about state government. My very first year, it was, I want to say February or March, I walked into the Oregon State House for the very first time.
Right.
Had never been there before and testified. And during the last session, a friend of mine and I were kind of keeping a tally of how many times we testified, mostly remote, which is really a nice convenience to have instead of making a trip all the way to Salem and back for 2 minutes of testimony. And I quit counting when I was well over 25 times testifying. And again, it's like my newsletter said, I mean, one of the things about my job is that I advocate for the people of Union County. And even at the federal level, I've learned quite a little bit, and there is not a truer statement than the wheels of government move slowly. And the higher you go in the government, the slower they move.
Going back to your relationship with Governor Kotek. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, she listens. I always appreciate thinking people, regardless of what their persuasion is, because at least you have some confidence that they're listening and thinking about the alternatives and stuff. Do you think that it makes a difference for us in Eastern Oregon? Do you think we're being, I mean, you feel like we're being heard, but is that trickling through the system to where it's making a difference for some of the things that matter to us?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
And part of it is, reading through the budget and seeing what was in, what was not in. There are some things that maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
right.
It seemed like it was clearly related to those discussions that we had with her. And I think it is making a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so what else in Union County is...
Oh gosh, we are working on expanding the fuel farm at the airport. And I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but last summer, prior to last summer, the record volume for Jet A fuel that came through our airport that we dispensed was give or take 120,000 gallons. And this year we were well over 250,000 gallons.
Wow.
So, and because we're not on a regular delivery schedule, our public works director, who's also our airport manager, has to fight tooth and nail for every single load of fuel that comes in. And so we're expanding that fuel farm so we have storage through Senator Hansel and Senator-elect Nash. We've got a bill that's going before the legislature. Representative Owens has got an identical bill, and that is to have, through Oregon Department of Emergency Management, a fleet of tank trucks, if you will, that will, given the need, will come to LaGrange and either be able to deliver the fuel or to be able to store the fuel, mobile storage. And then the other airport is Burns. So kind of a test for the system. And also they will have the actual delivery or pump truck, so that it goes from the bulk to the actual airplanes. Last year we had one with a mechanical issue, went down and the part was like 2 weeks getting it, which really put a lot of strain on the people that were trying to get the Jet A to the, because those people want to be in the air. Right, they don't do a lot of good on the ground. So hopeful on that. We've got some pretty good support from folks I've talked to. Commissioner Scarfo was able to bring in one of the co-chairs of Ways and Means, and she was very attentive listening to that. So like I say, I'm hopeful that we can get it through. What happens a lot of time on these bills, though, is it goes through committee, and the committee thinks, yeah, this is a great idea, and they maybe even pass it unanimously, or oftentimes pass it unanimously, and then it goes to Ways and Means, and which is the funding mechanism for all of these bills, and it just gets lost in the shuffle and dies a slow death in there. So, but hopefully with like I say, Commissioner Scarfo was able to invite, and she showed up, and Representative Levy on the fairground issue, Senator Kate Lieber, who is the new Ways and Means co-chair. So
what caused the uptick in Jet A fuel consumption?
Well, a couple things. One is how big the fire season was, especially.
That's what I figured.
Right, especially, but there is more to it than that, because even prior to that, we've been working on this expansion of our fuel farm for, probably 4 years now. For a long, long time, we had propeller planes that were dropping retardant. Then they brought in, actually I haven't seen a propeller plane in a number of years. Now we've got jets that use a lot more every time they fuel, and they make much quicker laps, so that really ramps up the volume that they're using. And I was out at the airport one day last summer when things were kind of really moving rapidly, and there was 4 large air tankers on the tarmac that were getting ready to go. There were 2 seats, which is a small single engine air tanker, basically a crop duster on steroids. And while I was there, they were all getting in rotation to go to fires. And then also, there were 3 helicopters sitting for an initial attack, and 2 other helicopters that were actively working fire, and they were coming in for fuel. So
wow.
a lot of moving parts out there, and the folks that do the fueling out there really did a nice job this summer. So.
Wow.
Is that how an airport makes the majority of its money?
Not
through
ours.
Fuel sale?
No. I mean,
Just
ours.
Contracts or?
No, it's federal grants. Because
Really?
because there's a specific standard, and they want you to meet that.
Okay.
And most of the fuel expansion was actually Oregon Department of Transportation. It's called a Connect Oregon grant, and those cycle through, I think, on a 2-year basis. And when we compete for those, we're competing with PDX and some pretty large operations, especially along the coast and along the Columbia and Willamette. But fortunately, we were able to get that and expand our fuel. But even with that, I'm concerned, we're concerned that it's not going to be enough.
So, and it seems like you'd said that we have 40,000 gallon capacity out there.
Give or take, yep.
Yeah, and so then, just to kind of rephrase what it is that you said before. So, if we really need more capacity, because then you have more on stock and you have to refill less, right? And so then essentially the plan is to have these mobile stocks, mobile tanks,
yes,
that are going to move to the places where they're needed.
where the retardant planes are really
coming through,
pulling a lot of product through the airport.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. And what a creative idea,
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, clearly what the goal would be to have to increase permanent capacity, but still, what a great stopgap measure.
Right. And part of it for me is it's not just the storage issue, it's also the delivery.
Right.
Whether the tank truck drivers are out of hours because of Department of Transportation rules, or happened multiple times this last summer is with the place they call the rack, which is the gas station where the gas stations get their Jet A.
Yeah.
Was out of fuel.
Right.
And there's some talk about them actually trying to move one of those racks to Eastern Oregon, and I said, pick us. We'd be more than happy to host it. And it's much more complicated than that, because a lot of that will come through by barge rather than by single truck.
Right. Wow. All right. So what else is in the air?
2 weeks ago, yesterday, I guess, Commissioner-elect Collier from Wallowa County, current Commissioner Nash, Senator-elect Nash, Commissioner-elect Sievert, and I myself sat down with Congressman Bentz and had really good, long, deep discussions. He really spent a fair amount of time getting to know both of them better. He knew each one of them, but getting to know them just a little bit better. And by the time we left, we got there a little bit before noon Mountain Time, and it was a little bit after 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we left. So good, solid chunk of time. Learned volumes about federal politics, policy, the transition team, why certain decisions were being made, and if you recall, Congressman Bentz was the first Western representative to back President-elect Trump, and very staunch in his support of him, and President Trump has not forgotten that.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting. It's we referenced my schedule earlier. I can't even imagine what a representative schedule looks like. I mean, his district goes virtually from all of Eastern Oregon and Southern Oregon to Medford, Grants Pass, and then up the Interstate 5, almost to Roseburg. That's a big chunk of real estate, and getting just around in his district, let alone the trips between his home and Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So really appreciative that we have the access to the representative and have those good, long conversations.
Yeah. Every conversation I've had with Cliff has been I've loved it.
Every time I learn something.
Yeah.
He is really a bright person.
Right. Yeah. But he listens. He's super approachable. He's,
Yep.
Yeah. Just there's a certain amount of confidence. I mean, when people talk bad about the government, which is easy to do, it's
Yes,
there's a lot wrong there. But but when I know Cliff Benz, I know him personally, and it's like, there's a lot of trust and confidence in that. So. Yep.
And one thing that's relatively new in his office, there's 2 individuals in the Ontario office now. Prior to that, there was one, and they're making a much more concerted effort to get out to the district, especially in Eastern Oregon, Northeast Oregon. And the plan there is to have one in the office to be able to field calls and emails and constituent help, while the other one goes to events and represents the congressman at those events.
Good. All right, good. So, what else?
Been working quite a little bit on childcare. There's a task force with EOU, LeGrand School District, and Grand Ronde Hospital. One of the things that with this program I was selected for, actually the Rural Engagement and Vitality Center and I were selected for through National Association of Counties. We're focusing our efforts on childcare and looking forward to being able to get something on the ground. And the kind of the goal that I've got for it is it needs to be affordable, it needs to be stable on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, and then it needs to be long-term. And that program we were selected for comes with a grant of $50,000, which will really, I think, help as seed money as we put all this together. I'm hopeful that we can, with folks working kind of in a common direction, we can accomplish something good. And I've talked about it before on here. I think we've got 43% of our population is below ALICE, which is asset limited, income constrained, employed. So what it means is those folks that are working, but they are one medical bill, car breakdown, one financial event from really not being able to hold it together. Growing up, we always called it living paycheck to paycheck, which is, unfortunately, we've got a good portion of ours. And of that 43%, 18% of our population in Union County is below the poverty level, which I'm embarrassed to say, and trying to figure out some ways that we can get people working and providing child care at some level of consistency and affordability, I think will be key to getting some of those folks back to work.
And, it's being conservative, and I know that you're conservative also, or you tend to lean that way, is, you don't want more government programs, or you don't want more government expenses, or whatever the case might be, but you can't ignore the problem of childcare. I mean, it is just vast, you know.
Yep.
And
for me, part of that three-legged stool that I always talk about, it's difficult to hire people. It's difficult to find a place for them to buy, build, or rent.
Right.
And we're talking every economic strata.
Right.
It's not one economic section of our community. And then the third one, if by some miracle you do hire someone and they find some place to live, generally speaking, the next big stumbling block is childcare.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of, coming out of COVID, that is one of the things, is that you had people that were at home, they couldn't work, and then when it came back to going back to work, they started calculating, and it's like, well, yeah, I could go back to work, but if I could find childcare, more than half of my income is going to go to take care of the kids. So It's just like, And I have been inside a little bit of this conversation. But in order, I mean, part of the obstacles is that to have childcare here locally, that it has to be heavily subsidized by somebody. I mean, it's really difficult to get something like that to pay for itself.
It is difficult, yes. Yeah. And part of that is, I mean, you can look at the model that they've got in the Port of Morrow. Those businesses in the Port of Morrow are subsidizing childcare for their workers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because they know if their workers don't have childcare, they're not going to be there doing their job.
Right.
So they have a model that's working in Port of Morrow.
Working pretty well, yeah. Okay. But again, call it subsidy, call it a benefit of employment at those right. places. It's and there's a fine line there, like you said. I mean, how much government intervention do you really want?
Right.
And
right.
That's a fine line to walk. But the director of the Rural Engagement and Vitality Center, yesterday we met, and we meet regularly to work on this. One of the things we looked at is the rate, fairly typical rate, which is $5.75 an hour per child. And if you look
that seems like a lot.
Doesn't it? But at the same time, at minimum wage, that's 43% of minimum wage before taxes. So, like you said, well over half if you're once you get done with taxes. And at that point, are you working to make money, or are you working to hire a daycare provider?
Right.
Right. Could you imagine if we paid teachers what child care providers make per kid? You're essentially a child care provider.
We could disagree on that. Yeah, it would be significant.
Oh
yes,
my
it would
gosh.
be. Yes, yeah.
But at the same time, it's just math at some point. You break it down, you got the facilities, you got, whatever it is to operate, and you divide it by the number of kids you got. So.
Yep. And that's part of it. I mean, if your margins are too thin, and for whatever, kid's sick.
Right.
They don't show up, you don't get to bill those, and then pretty soon you're going, wait, we're losing money here. And it's a thorny issue for sure. But been working on that quite a bit. Association of Oregon Counties had their annual convention in Eugene just before Thanksgiving. Our new president is John Schaefer from Umatilla County. We work really well with him, so I'm excited about that. I'm no longer a co-chair of the Transportation and Community Development committee, and I was kind of happy to take some off my plate on that, but they asked me to be the co-chair for Natural Resources, and that I gladly accepted. So Commissioner Pope from Polk County, Commissioner Pope from Polk County is the co-chair, and I'm really looking forward to working with him, and especially as the legislative session moves forward.
Yeah.
I used to live in Polk County.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 15 years.
Yeah, and it's an interesting mix of urban and rural.
It's very. That county is very similar to, at least Dallas. I would say Dallas is very similar to LaGrange. Mm-hmm. Very similar.
Yep.
It's like almost a carbon copy. It's crazy.
Yep.
So talk to us about mental health services and the whole. Kind of catch us up, and I don't know if you're injected into that or not, but there's just all this conversation about Measure 110 and it changing and the deflection centers and what's the county, what are they?
I will tell you that is in Commissioner Scarfo's portfolio. Obviously I'm aware of what's going on, but as far as details and getting into the weeds, that would be Commissioner Scarfo.
Yeah.
But bottom line is we're getting more and more services for mental health in our community almost every day. And CHD's got a new director of mental health, and she's doing a wonderful job, Barb Cedar. And yeah, like I say, Commissioner Scarfo is deep into the weeds on that
Right.
one and doing well. I do know that there's some legislative tweaks they want to do. Again, funding looks like, from the revenue forecast, things are going to be okay. But the legislature is pretty good about spending every dime that they take in. So we'll see how that translates out as the session moves forward.
Yeah. So Jared Boyd is coming in as a judge.
Mm-hmm.
Does that affect anything at the county level, or
not so much.
They kind of manage themselves.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, completely. Actually, not employees of the county,
Right.
And shortly, no.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've got a good working relationship with those folks, and actually at the Cattlemen's, my wife and I were lucky enough to sit next to them at dinner and had a good conversation. And and his oath of office is Friday the 3rd.
Oh wow!
And then starts on the 6th as well.
Okay. We spent quite a bit of time talking to Kelsey and Cody both about enforcement, and both of them agree that at times that they feel hamstrung because there's not accountability for crimes. They're coming at it from two different angles, but do you see any of that changing at the state level? Do you see, is the governor aware of those things? I don't know. Do you have any inclination on that topic?
Those conversations that I do have with the governor,
Yeah.
Every time I get this, every conversation I get this in here. In my wallet, I carry a list of former students of mine, which is not a really big population pool, that are dead from overdose.
Right.
And I tell her about that, and I say every single time, is there a way that you can't, because ultimately you can direct people to go where you tell them to. We need one state trooper on our drug task force.
Right.
And to date, that has not happened.
Right.
So I hope, but hope is not a really great strategy that
Right.
the legislature, and I think as long as there's still significant issues on the west side, and in particular Salem and Portland and Eugene, I think that it's more likely that there will be some movement on that.
Because it's not just in enforcement. It is in tools that enforcement can actually use.
Right.
In search or discovery, and then prosecutors use to actually.
Right.
It's there are several things that are broken, if I'm understanding it correct.
Yes, you are.
There are several things that are broken along the way. Yeah.
Hamstrung is really the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunate that our law enforcement is not able to do their jobs like we would like them to.
Yeah.
It's not a secret that we've got houses in this town that are known drug houses.
Yeah.
Not only this town, sorry, I didn't mean this county.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's not just, every fabric of our community is touched by this. And it's like, well, why don't you just I hear this all the time, why don't they just go in there and bust them? Well, that would be awesome, but because of the changes in laws, like you said, search and seizure.
Yeah.
The one chink in the armor, which Cody and his folks have really identified and taken advantage of, is when they're transporting large quantities into our community. He's able to, and that's where that drug task force really works pretty well, works very well, and I think will continue to have an effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kyle and I have talked, and I'm not sure I'm yet proposing this, but it would be, it'd be interesting if the citizens rose up and they had protest signs and they stood outside of the drug houses, or they followed those people around through the grocery store. Like, yeah, this person is, I'm not proposing that, but sometimes you wonder if some negative social pressure like that wouldn't make a difference.
Yep. And when I took office, like we talked about 6 years ago, I went to the sheriff and I said, let's get after them.
Right.
You know who the dealers
Right.
are. Harass them. And he goes, therein lies the problem, because the way the laws were written, even then, I mean, and they had more flexibility then, you couldn't, harass them to the point where they thought, this isn't worth it, we're going to go somewhere else.
Right. But the citizens could.
To a degree, yes.
Yeah. I mean, so anyhow, I don't know that I'm, but I guess the point is that there has to be, if there's not some disincentive, if they're hamstrung, if law enforcement is hamstrung in some manner, then I don't know. It's just at the end of the day, those people they are tearing down our community.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And themselves.
And themselves, right.
It's easy to, that's an addict, that's a junkie, whatever name you want to call them, and to a large degree look down your nose at them, but at the same time, I mean, that's someone's child.
Yeah.
It might be someone's partner, spouse, grandchild, father or mother, and really, for me, it goes beyond, just getting them off of our streets, and it's getting them healthy and
well, and I'm not suggesting that we shame addicts.
Right.
But those people that are making a living and profiting off of
that. Yep.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah. Those folks shouldn't be in our community.
Yes. Completely agree there.
Yeah.
And my hope is that the legislature, again, sees that their experiment in decriminalizing hard drugs is still not working and takes further steps. I think the deflection program is going to be helpful, but it's not going to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
They took a step, but they didn't, in my view, go far enough, the legislature.
Yeah. All righty. Well, hey, anything else before we quit, man?
The legislature, Senator-elect Nash, it's not a secret, I supported him very early. We went to college together. Most every day we talk at least once, and I'm excited to have him there. He does have a bill that I could probably have to testify on, and not necessarily in support, and that is I think you're aware that Senator Hansel made the potato the state vegetable. And across from the State House, there's a big plaque that recognizes, much like the flower or the mushroom or the potato. And Commissioner Nash, soon to be Senator Nash, is of the opinion that the ribeye steak needs to be right next to it. So we'll see how that goes.
Wait, the potato, the state vegetable of Oregon? Isn't it Idaho's?
Again, wasn't my decision. And I would have thought that the onion producers would have had something to say about that.
But yeah.
Yeah. And someone, made the really good point. When you're down there for months on end, grinding, it's good to have at some point at least a little bit of levity in it. And shout out to our beef producers that produce a really great product, not only for the people of Oregon, but a lot of the nation eats Oregon beef.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Tanya and I were in a plane ride with one of the cattlemen here in the valley, and he was flying, and it was early morning, and Tanya looked down, and the cattle were all in some kind of a S or something like that, and she's like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Why?" He goes, "Yeah, that's the way I drove the truck this morning." And they happen to be his cows, and and they're just some of those things that you don't ever think about. And we don't really, compared to Baker County, I think Baker do they have more cows than we do?
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they don't have as much farmland because the climate is just different enough, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, we don't see that as much here, in Union County. So, yeah, you're right. Shout out to them.
Yep.
And it seems like you were, there was some effort in getting USDA inspection in Union County, or
We've got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Billy Bob Stafford and Elgin can and does provide USDA inspections so that the producer can go directly from farm to market. And there's a number of folks that are doing that.
And that was not available before. Right?
Not, it was, but not to the level it is now.
Okay.
Well, actually, at the start of my term, it was not, and I'm not taking credit for it.
No, it seems like you had, if to do that, you had to ship clear to Boise,
right,
have it inspected. Yeah,
yep.
right.
And now we can have it done locally, which is really saves a lot in transportation and offers farmers and ranchers a different and probably better avenue to direct market. Cuts out the middleman.
Yeah.
And those that are purchasing, I think it's really good for them because they know what you're feeding your cow and what you're feeding your cow and how you're treating it. And
so like a restaurant technically can only buy USDA beef. Okay. So there is the possibility now of a local restaurant being able to buy beef that was harvested right here in Union County.
Correct. And there is one that's doing that. And if I give them a plug, I apologize for taking up your advertising, but Side A serves 6 Ranch beef, which is relatives, children of Commissioner and soon-to-be Senator Nash. Have the 6 Ranch, and that's the beef that's served.
But that's not Union County.
No. It's some of it,
but
not
still,
all of
it's
it,
Eastern
is
Oregon.
processed in Union County.
Yeah.
So
no, good. Well, thank you, Paul.
Bet.
Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate you getting up this morning and being here. So
you bet.
All righty. Hey, you
got a comment here from Greg Maddox. He says the Baker High School boys varsity won the Mazama Invitational in Crook County over the weekend. Also, they're number 1 in the state. They're returning state champions. Yeah, they're good. There's no doubt about that.
That's an awesome shirt you're wearing there, sir.
This?
Yeah. Buffalo Pete.
Yeah, I
Thank
have
you.
a lot of these.
Good. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
1884, on this day, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain is first published in the UK and Canada. It didn't come out in the US until February of 1885 due to printing errors. 1898, on this day, the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Spanish-American War, is signed by President McKinley. And in that process, the United States acquired the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. 1906, on this day, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt is the first American awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 1971, on this day, December 10th, Lucasfilm Ltd. is founded as a film and television production company by George Lucas in San Francisco, California. 1978, on this day, Superman the movie, directed by Richard Donner and starring Christopher Reeve, Marlon Brando. My papers are sticking together. And Gene Hackman premieres at the Uptown Theater in Washington, D.C. 2015, on this day, scientists at Cornell University announced the world's first IVF puppies successfully born from a surrogate dog. On this day, the number 1 movie in America in 1994 is The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. And the quote of the day comes from Confucius. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. One more time. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, thank you, Paul, for being here.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yeah, appreciate it a bunch. Thank you, guys. Hey,
See you
just one
Thursday.
thing. Yeah, so this Sunday, we are going to be streaming The Messiah, the performance of The Messiah, this Sunday night. If you want to be in person, which you should be there, I think it's at 6 p.m. at the LeGrand High School Auditorium, but that will also be right here on our network. Thanks a bunch, guys, and we'll see you Thursday.
Thursday.
Yep.